Guys, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. If you didn't draw a hunt this year, don't worry. There are still ways to get a tag and get out in the field. Not only are there leftover and OTC opportunities, but if you join GoHunt.com Insider with promo code JScott by August 31st, 2021, you're also going to be entered to win $1,500 worth of KUIU gear. You also are going to get 10 entries into Go Hunt's big Summer of Elk giveaway, where you could win a 2022 New Mexico elk hunt and $15,000 in hunting gear. Go Hunt Insider is the one platform for finding great hunts, researching new units, e-scouting, and planning your hunt. Now, an added incredible value at no extra cost are desktop maps and maps available on iPhone and Android. Again, this is no extra cost. It's part of being an Insider member. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Sign up at gohunt.com/JScott and get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card just by using the JScott promo code. And also, don't forget, you're going to be entered into a drawing to win $1,500 worth of KUIU gear. I also want to thank the gear shop at GoHunt.com and Cody Nelson, my friend of 20 plus years, the glassing guru. Don't forget, if you order on GoHunt.com or you call or text Cody at 602-399-3699, you're going to get a 10% discount by using the JScott promo code. You can also call the shop directly at 702-847-8747 or email at optics@gohunt.com. I want to thank Go Hunt for their sponsorship of this podcast. I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting for sponsoring this podcast. That is the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. You can go to kuiu.com to order directly off the website. They're a direct-to-consumer company. They make the best hunting gear on the market today. Also, phonescope.com. Use the JScott21 promo code. You're going to get a 10% off on all orders at phonescope.com. Guys, thanks for listening, and let's get right to this episode.
It's great to have you, buddy. We've been friends. We met in 1997, and I want you to tell kind of a story about how we met. You had a 3C tag, and I think the first time we met, I was broken down on the side of the road, if I remember, and you came firing up, and I think you had just killed that big giant bull, 407 or 412.
412, yeah, 412 and 7, and he was, we were running to town, I think, and you were off the side of the road, and we pulled over to see if you needed help, and I think, as I remember, you were working on your brakes or something. It was.
I think I just hopped in with you guys. I think I just shut the door, left the keys in it, and hopped in with you guys, and we went to town and had breakfast or something.
Yeah. And you ran around with us. You actually filmed Michael's bull. When Michael shot his bull, you filmed it. And I remember when we were calling bulls in for Michael in 3C, one after another, the bulls were coming in. And I was throwing rocks at them and running them off. And Michael was getting so mad at me. It's like, Michael, that's a 310 bull. You don't want to shoot a 310 bull with a 3C tag. I said, just be patient. And then when that bull showed up, it was 349, I think. When that bull showed up, I and I said, there's no way we're going to keep from shooting this one. So
I learned more in a week of hunting with you guys, or maybe it was 6 days or something like that with you guys. I just ended up, I was just out there videoing them, and I hopped in with you guys and learned more in those 6 days about elk hunting, which I tell people really gave me my start of understanding when a bull is coming in, how to react, how sometimes the wind shifts, you got to slide over a little bit. I was always so thinking that you had to be so still, but I learned from you guys how, you don't call until you're in the right position where the bull's going to come, where he's not going to slide downwind, because he's always going to slide downwind, and getting in the right spots. And so, I'm routinely telling people that in those 5 or 6, 7 days, whatever it was with you and Michael, learned a lot about how to call in bulls, how to be in position, because I'll ask you a first question here. Don't you think a lot of it is actually knowing where to be before you make the call, because they need to be in the right spot, or you need to be in the right spot for them to actually come to you where you have a shot?
Sure. If you can control the situation as best as you can, you got to take advantage of it. You got to look around and say, okay, that looks really good right there. But sometimes you get caught with your pants down. For those that have seen the video on YouTube of that bull that I shot on the San Carlos, it was 452. It's kind of interesting because guys made comments, rookie mistake. The guy set up in the middle of a snag or whatever. We just got pinned down and we had to do what we had to do. And it wasn't a rookie mistake. It's just we had to make, we had to try and make chicken salad out of chicken, what. So,
yeah. With that being said, Casey, you've killed 74 bulls with your bow and arrow, and some very big bulls. There's nobody on the planet that's killed as big an elk as you have, and I would argue you've probably killed as many with a bow as anybody's ever dreamed of. You still make mistakes probably every day. Talk a little bit about how no matter how much you learn, how much you do, those animals still get the upper hand on you.
If you're not learning, if you're not learning, you're not hunting, you're not paying attention. The more time you spend in the woods, the more mistakes you're going to make. And the people that seem to move on and can finish those elk time and time again, those are the guys that learn from their mistakes. I've learned from a lot of my mistakes, and I'm still making mistakes, so,
For sure. I want to dive in and talk about elk hunting, but before we do that, for some of the people out there, and we've got 60-some people that are sitting here watching now, one of the beautiful things about this is they can also go on, I'll post this on Instagram so they can watch it at a later date, plus I put the audio on my podcast. There's probably some people out there that don't know you. I feel like you've probably done more in the bow hunting world than anybody walking right now or in history potentially. And a lot of people don't know you. You're from Washington. Talk about your start, like your very first, when you started archery hunting. I want to kind of go back to the beginnings of your archery hunting career, and then I'll kind of pick away and ask you some questions. Because, you're a guy that's, you've shot the Archery Super Slam 29. You've shot handfuls of big rams with your bow, African animals, you name it. Across the board, you've been all over the world, 8 or 10, 12 sheep. You're a turkey nut, you're a waterfowl nut, you're a salmon fishing nut. You've shot bears of every kind, and piles of them. I want to go back to the very beginnings of the bow hunting and what made you a bow hunter.
I was born in Portland, Oregon, and Portland back then was different than it is now. I was raised in Portland. I remember as a kid shooting our recurves in the backyards. We had backyard targets, and we would shoot the recurves in the backyards every day. I'll never forget the first compound I shot. It was a Bear Puller LTD, and it had all those pulleys all over it. And I shot in the backyard a lot. My dad took me to Hart Mountain in Oregon. It was a premium spot to go kill big mule deer. Dad would take me to Hart Mountain when I was like 5 years old, and it was a bow hunt. And if you didn't kill a deer back then with a bow, then you could pick up a rifle and you could go rifle hunting later, I believe. And so we would hunt there year after year. I'd fish in the creek, and Dad would go bow hunting. And about 15 years old, I was so bit by the bug, we went over to a place called Walton Lake in eastern Oregon and went deer hunting, and I just got bit. From then on, I was massively hooked. First animal was a spike buck.
The spike buck, and then there was a point there where you just literally put the rifle down, and ever since then you've been hunting with a bow and arrow. And what's so fun about, we've been friends for a long time, is you're a bow hunter. You're going to hunt with the bow. You shoot waterfowl and stuff with a shotgun, but you're shooting everything with a bow. You've been all over the world with a bow. You have you're not downplaying or holding it against anyone that rifle hunts. You just like to hunt with a bow. Talk about what makes it special being an archery-only hunter, being a bow hunter.
Well, for me, in 1992, I had a Henry Mountains buffalo tag. I shot a buffalo that was quartering away, and the arrow slid down his side and lodged in his shoulder. I tracked him for 3 days, about 7 miles, and the bull was headed for a national park. And so I picked up a rifle and shot it, and that was the last animal I shot with a rifle. And I knew right then and there it just wasn't for me. But I didn't want to, I didn't want a crippled animal getting away, and so I finished him, and it's history. It is what it is. Went to the freezer, and I'd rather shot him with a bow for sure. But I know for me, I'd rather shoot a spiked buck than a 350 mule deer or a 600 elk. If I shot one with a rifle, you could cut it up and make knife handles out of it. For me, it just wouldn't mean anything. Anybody else, I'll leave it for those guys to shoot with a gun. It's cool if you like. Dad's sitting right next to me here. He loves to rifle hunt,
Yeah,
But,
for sure.
so
Casey, being that you've been all over the world and harvested all kinds of animals with your bow and arrow, is there one animal out there that you think archery wise, bow hunting wise, is probably the toughest animal out there to hunt?
yeah, I think go spot and stalk a coos deer. I mean, you'd have to agree with me on that. I mean, that's a tough animal, especially a big one, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, they're so aware of everything around them. They're so jumpy. It's such a small target. I mean, is there any other animals that you hunted across the world, maybe in Africa or anything, that have that, same elusive kind of mentality as a coos deer?
Yeah, a lot of the animals in Africa are that way. I mean, if you get out and start walking around instead of sitting in a blind, they're wide awake. I mean, they're still very killable. I mean, but a lot of Africa is flat and open, and you're sliding in on a springbuck ram, you're trying to kill him, and he's got, 50 other springbuck with it, with him. He's pretty tough to kill.
Yeah, for sure. The North American 29 is a heck of a feat, and you completed that, 7, 8, 10 years ago, maybe? 20 when?
2012.
2012, okay. That's a heck of an accomplishment, but from my perspective, having never pursued that, it seems like a real grind. It seems like, potentially it's a grind and maybe take some of the fun out of it. I'm curious, in your quest for the 29, was there ever a point where it was just like a complete grind and you just had to really push through it, and talk about that a little bit?
It wasn't fun. I mean, there's a lot of hunts that you do on that are really not up your alley. I'm not a big polar bear hunter. I'm not necessarily a big grizzly bear. I don't especially like hunting things that want to eat me. So those kind of things. I mean, I had to do a brown bear hunt twice, 2 or 3 times, twice for sure. And we hadn't killed a brown bear on like the 11th day, and it was the 11th day or 12th day, whatever it was. It was in the middle of the night, and it was still, you got daylight all except for maybe 2 hours or something. And we would go out there, and we had these baseball caps that had nets on, and you pull the net down over your arms, and you're about getting carried away by the mosquitoes. And the brown bears, we're sleeping on the edge of the creek, and the bears are running up and down the creek in the dark right in front of you, And looking back on it, it's really cool. Looking back on the polar bear, it's really cool. But 30 below is just not fun,
Yeah.
5 days in a dog sled to go across Resolute Bay to get to the other side, and then you run down the other side and finally find a polar bear track that looks like a good track, and the bear's standing there on an ice hole, and you go after him with the dogs, and they're hard to catch up with when they start moving. They really can cover
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Out of those animals, those 29, if I probably know which one of them is one of your favorite, but what are 2 or 3 of your favorites out of the 29 as far as animals in general? Maybe not specific hunts, but which one of those do you really like hunting the most?
Well, which one do you think I like the most?
Probably elk and blacktail.
There you go. That's 2 really good ones. Mule deer, I've kind of got off the blacktail thing in the past maybe 8 years or something. It used to be I'd go out there and I'd shoot 2 or 3 bucks a year because you could draw, a Willamette tag and then another, 615 and 815 tag, and then you could hunt with your general tag. And the blacktail numbers are just not doing so well. So I kind of shifted to mule deer, and I love hunting deer. I really do. There's talk about a challenge. A deer of any kind, big whitetails. Good Lord, I've been schooled on big whitetails. Those guys that are killing those big whitetails back there, I take my hat off to them. I mean, big bucks
But
like that.
you have shot some going back to blacktails, you've shot some really big blacktails over the years. I mean, a pile of big blacktails. And you've shot some big mule deer as well. Sheep, I mean, we could go on and on. I want to talk about elk. 74 elk with a bow. I mean, early on, was there ever any thought that you would ever get to a place where you'd kill 74 bull elk with a bow?
No. You know, I was just going and doing what I love to do. I was fortunate enough to hunt a place that had a lot of elk on it, and it would take me, Jay, I'm not kidding you, it would take me 20 days to kill a bull on this ranch, and I would see 150 elk a day. But I got a lot of interaction with the elk early, and that really taught me a lot about elk hunting. And I can go back to that same ranch right now and shoot a 6-point in 2 days. You know, I've got it figured out.
I think that's I've talked about it before on other podcasts, but having at-bats and having opportunities only makes you better. And I feel like, unfortunately, some of the guys that hunt the Western U.S. now, with some of the way public lands all clogged up, and they don't get very many opportunities. Whereas a guy like yourself, you know, you're in your mid-50s, I'm almost 50. You know, you've had lots of opportunities and lots of at-bats with different situations with, you know, how elk react. And I feel like maybe if you started now, you would have your hands full because the opportunities aren't maybe as good as when you started. Talk about how important it is to be able to learn those elk behavior and characteristics in order to, you know, become as good as you've become at calling elk.
It's everything. I mean, being on big numbers of elk, I mean, it's just like going to school every day. Like I say, if you pay attention, you learn from your mistakes, and then you apply those life lessons everywhere I go. And I'll tell you, things have changed a little bit, you know. The Winnahaw, for instance, I drew the Winnahaw this year in Oregon, which is, you know, one of the premium tags. Probably going to turn it back due to fire. The Winnahaw's burning up this year, so I probably won't go. But the Winnahaw is not near as much fun as it used to be because the bulls love to tuck tail and run, you know. And the way you and I are, we like to call elk because we like to call elk and see them come in. We don't want to hear them bugle and run the other way. And it's the same with turkeys or anything else. So it's unfortunate, but the elk are changing a little bit in a lot of places. They're not quite as wild as they were, you know, and, you know, when you could go out there and you could just hit a piece of pipe and, you know, whistle at them and they'd all answer and hear one to come walking in. And that still happens in places. But for instance, Winnahaw, I was there a couple of years ago. I was there, and in 2 weeks I called 9 bulls into bow range. I left there for 1 day and went to a general unit in Oregon, and I called 9 bulls in 1 day, you know, in a general unit that I was familiar with. So it really it just depends, you know. But I like to apply everything. Whether I don't even have to think about it. I mean, I've been there enough times that it kind of comes natural now, you know. Okay, I can feel that wind. I'm moving before I even think about what's going on. You know, you can feel it. I don't have much hair left. That's mostly from hunting mule deer and takes on those elk.
Yeah, for sure. So there's another Brooks. That might give you a run for your money with calling. Your son Bo is an absolute phenomenal caller. I say he's the best animal caller in the world of you know, waterfowl, geese. I mean, anything you can call, Bo Brooks can call him. He's placed very high in the World Elk Champion calling contest. He's won duck and goose. I mean, he's absolutely unbelievable. So I always tease you that maybe there's another Brooks in town that's got your number. But I will add one thing. You have experience. Talk about that, the fact that maybe Bo can make better sounds than you, but there's also something said to have had those at-bats, had those experiences that I think a lot of people don't really take into consideration of how important it is that maybe sometimes setup, maybe sometimes waiting to call is more important than the actual sound. While I agree sound needs to be good, setup is everything. Timing.
Timing is everything. Whether it's waterfowl, deer, elk, anything, or moose, anything that you're calling, to me, timing is everything. I mean, if you hit the wrong sound at the wrong time, you can watch them turn and go the other direction. And I mean, I've done it. So
yeah, but I mean, it takes those times to make those sounds or make them at the wrong time with the wrong timing to it doesn't take long for you to go, okay, that didn't work. I'm not going to do that again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? The fun, it may work. It may not have worked that particular time, and it may work the next time. I mean, it just, you just never know what's going to really happen. But
when it comes to calling elk, we'll talk about elk here. Would you say your strategy is, are you more of a bugler? Are you more of a cow caller? Where would you put yourself if you had to rank that or put it in a category?
by far both. I mean, I use everything. Cow calling, a lot of times, most of the time, I locate with a cow call, which is really opposite of what most people do. I get up on a landing in the dark and stand up on a stump and I start cow calling and listen for the bulls to all pipe off. And typically, I won't start bugling until I get in their hip pocket. I'll cow call my way in, work my way in, and then when I get in tight, then I start letting him have it. And that bull just lights up like, hey, where did he come from?
Would you say that, what percentage of bulls want to play and what percentage don't? And I know it probably varies on where you're at and what have you, but you're a very good bugler, unbelievable bugler. What's your ratio if you can get in there? Let's say conditions are good. What's your ratio if he's going to come take a look?
It depends where you're at for sure. Winnahaw, I would say it's very poor. Maybe early in the season it might be better. I've just never been there real early. Obviously San Carlos, White Mountain, Unit 3C in the old days. Like when I was in 3C in 97, if I heard a bull, there was no question that if I walked over there, I could call him in. I killed my bull in 3C on the third day. I'd been in a car accident on the way, and I could barely walk. The guy from California decided to stop when we were passing somebody. He decided to stop in front of me, and I hit him and shot him out into a cow pasture. And he says, "My car, are they going to be able to fix it?" And it looked like an accordion. The back bumper was clear. I said, "You realize the left car to be alive?" I hit him with a 350, 5 miles an hour. But across the back of the seat, there's a lumbar support there. It's a piece of steel in a 97 Ford. And I snapped that. It's fully welded on one side. I snapped it off with my lower back. And so when I got there, I was taking as much leave as I could take. And I was going to every bull that I could get to, but I could only go about a quarter mile from the truck. I could hardly walk. And I think the bull that I called in was about the 8th or 9th bull. And that Unit 3C bull came walking in. And I said, wow, look at those fronts. He's coming in. And he got past me a little bit where I couldn't shoot him on the right side. And he kind of smelled me, knew something was wrong, and he took off to go. And I cow called to stop him. And at 30 yards, I popped him. And it wasn't till then, when I walked up to him, I didn't realize he had a 42-inch point on his left side, which is always nice.
Yeah, that's always a nice addition to your score, isn't it?
Absolutely. You bet. I'd rather be lucky than good.
So, Casey, you've got 74 bull elk with a bow. You've got handfuls over 400. How many bulls over 400 gross have you killed?
8.
8 over 400. And your biggest bull is what? Gross?
452 gross, 449 and 7 gross, 447 gross, 440 gross, 439 and 3/8 gross. And then I think there's a 412 and 7/8 and then a 401.
Yeah, it's amazing. And on top of that, you've also hunted with your dad, who's there with you, Pat, who's a good friend of mine also. And he's shot a number of great big bulls, a bunch of which you've been right there with him and calling for him. Tell me what it's like to watch your dad shoot a big bull.
Well, unbelievably, he's sleeping in the chair next to me. He's really into this. Some of these bulls that he
the ratings have gone really good, haven't they?
Some of these bulls that he's killed were my rejects. And I went back there. I was in White Mountain one day, and I called in a bull, and it came in. It was quartering towards me. I didn't like the shot, and I let him walk. Straight on, yes. Sideways, yes. But quartering towards me, I just wasn't comfortable with it. Let him walk. And then I went up the road a little ways, saw another bull, and went after him and called him in. And I passed him up 45 yards because there was a twig. I had an archery range on my property. There was a twig in the way, and I didn't want to ding him. I called the bull in later that evening, and I killed him. It was 386. And then I told Dad, I says, I know where there's two really big bulls. And so we went in there, and we got in between where I had found those bulls, and I called one of them in, and it was 424. Dad killed him. And the other bull, Alan Hamberlin, killed the next year, and he was, I think, 476 or 8 or something. I don't know.
Was that the one with the giant 4th and 5th that were just big, giant whale tails? Yeah.
That's him, yeah. I told Dad when I got back, I says, Dad, you wouldn't believe this bull, you know. And it was in kind of a general area where the guides really didn't want to go. So,
I've got some questions here, and then guys, anybody listening, if you've got questions for Casey, just go ahead and post them up there, and then I'll scroll through them here in a second. Casey, a few questions here. What's your early season calling strategy for elk? So early season, what's your calling strategy?
Early season, it's a super important thing to be patient. So if you're going to call in a drainage and you know there's elk there, I go in there and I sit down and I start cow calling. And I throw out some light, kind of quiet bugles, nothing huge. And I stay in one spot, and I'm listening for any twig to pop or anything. And I would give it at minimum a half hour in one spot, because those bulls will come in silent on you. And it doesn't matter, you know, early in the season like that. A lot of times if one shows up, there's going to be 4 or 5 bulls show up at the same time. You know, they're like, hey, what's going on over there? And we got to go check it out. So for me, early season, unless he's screaming, and then of course I'm just going to walk right at him and close the gap and
give him the pipe.
All we can do is just, you know, see what he's in the mood for, you know, and just go with it.
Okay, next question. Do you prefer to night bugle or glass and locate elk? So in other words, like drive around and bugle at night, kind of locating pods of bulls, or do you like to glass to locate them?
Actually, neither. I don't drive around at night anymore. I used to do that when I'd hunt a lot in really heavy populated areas with people. And the reason why I would do that, drive around at night with your GPS, mark bulls, get them on your GPS, mark them, and then go to the next one, mark them, and then at daylight you can just pick the one you want, and you're there before anyone else is, and you're part way to the bull before he, you know. But I don't do that anymore. I think I'm getting lazy, and I've kind of been there and done that, and I like my sleep. So I run around, and I typically don't glass bulls. I'm almost always with my ears is how I find my elk. And there are a few places where I go and there's sagebrush, and, you know, I'm going to be hunting Nevada this year. I'm sure I'll be doing some glass in there looking for, you know, a big bull before I just go walking in on him. But mostly I locate bulls, and then I go check every bull that I hear, and then move on, and then go find more bulls, and then call more bulls in. And I don't even care if they're 5 points. As long as they come in and they're bugling and playing the game, it's exciting to me, you know. So
yeah, for sure.
They may or may not get shot. You never know what my mood is.
You like playing with them. Question here on Instagram: elk broadheads. Are there any mechanicals that you will shoot? So
no.
Tell us the broadhead that you do shoot, whether it's fixed or mechanical, and then will you shoot mechanical?
Most people that know me know I used to shoot for Rocky Mountain. Randy Ulmer shot for Rocky Mountain at the same time. Randy called me one day and said, Case, have you tried the titanium yet? And I said, no. And he says, you got to try it. He says, I took it. They sent one to him, and he took it outside and shot it into a cinder block, and it held up. And so he called me and said, you got to get some of these heads and try them. He shot the 125s. I like the 100s myself. They're 1 inch and 1/8. And they quit making them. Field Logic bought out Rocky Mountain, which Field Logic, I think, is Raid, right? So I knew that was going to be the end of that broadhead. So we bought 50 dozen of them. And I'm still doing good because Bo hasn't figured out where my stash is. And, yeah, he hasn't figured out where my stash is. And I didn't have a tag for that fly, by the way, but I got him. So anyway, they quit making that head, and everybody was dying for that head for the longest time. And a couple of years ago, True Glow came out with a Titanium X 100, and it's the same broadhead. It's a Rocky Mountain titanium, but it's an 1 3/16 instead of the old 1 1/8. So I honestly think it's better if you want to shoot 50 yards and under. It's going to leave a bigger hole, and yeah, fabulous. I mean, I had them send me some, and I shot moose with them, elk, deer, all kinds of stuff, and so is my son. And expandable wise, I've just never been an expandable guy, Jay. I just, they were never legal where I hunt in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, and now they're legal, and it's just, I've just had such great success with titaniums. I just never changed, but I do see a place for them. I shooting, hunting these public whitetails and such. They're very tricky, and if they were to jump the string, it'd be nice to have a bigger hole in them for sure.
Hey, Casey, we're getting a little bit of digitizing. I don't know if anybody there, if they can hold off using the internet, possibly it might stop that from digitizing on the audio.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's there that you could yell at.
Yeah, I yelled at her. She put it down.
Okay. Bow setup. Tell us about your bow setup. Is it and how much has it changed over the years?
Well, in the beginning, in the old days, I ran an archery shop in Oregon, and everybody back then in the 80s was shooting 80, 100 pounds, and they were shooting overdraws and 24-13s and 22-13s, and they were shooting stuff to try and get their speed up to 240 feet per second. Well, bows have really changed through the years. Luckily for me, at this point, I'm pulling 65 pounds. I shot everything in North America with 65 pounds. I've shot 10 moose with a bow, probably. Hang on. Hey, can't snore during my podcast, Dad. So, like to keep my hobby.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so.
That's right.
65 pounds. I shot everything in North America.
So 10 moose at 65 pounds?
Yeah, full pass-throughs. Sharp broadhead, nice heavy arrow. I'm shooting, what I'd say is a nice arrow. It's 455 grains, 450. And then, it never fails. When you guys find what you're looking for, stick with it because they're going to discontinue it. The ACC 371 is the arrow that I shot by Easton forever. They discontinued it. So I'm going to have to change arrows sooner or later. I've got enough to get me by for a little while. Titaniums, I'm looking good there. And now that True Glow has those heads, I think the True Glow Titanium X, I really probably should buy another 20 dozen of those or something because just luck of the draw, they just quit making it. Things get hard to get. Remember toilet paper last year? I mean, you never know.
You never know. You sound like, and I know you, so I know the answer to this question, but you sound like when you find something you like, you're not one of these guys to be tinkering with new stuff all the time and always trying something new. You're more of the school of, find something that works that you like and just hone in on that and worry and focus on other things than being tinkering all the time, where there's some bow hunters that are just constantly tinkering with all of their gear. Curious your thoughts of that. Someone who shot, probably more animals than anybody walking with a bow. What are your thoughts about the guy that's just constantly tinkering with all kinds of stuff?
Well, he's just trying to find himself, and he will. You know what I mean? I changed some things around when I was, up and coming, but I figured out what works for me. And I'm shooting, the Hoyts, and I'm shooting them at 65 pounds, 29-inch draw, same arrow. And I could set up one tomorrow. If Hoyt sent me one tomorrow, I would feel great about just going out and sighting it in and going hunting with it because I'm very familiar with the way those bows feel, very familiar with, the trajectory, everything about it. It's year to year I'm shooting a new bow, but they're very similar.
Is it hard for you when you have, get them dialed in? Is it hard for you to pick up the new bow? You've shot for Hoyt forever. But I'm sure when you get one really dialed in and shot, sometimes there'll be a year where you'll shoot 30, 40 animals and you're feeling good, is it hard to go to the new bow the next year?
Well, I wouldn't say 30 or 40, but I might see that many in a year. And it's for me to go with
Bull. I know
I'll tell
you.
you what. I'll tell you what's hard. And Randy got
Between
after me,
deer and all your animals.
but Randy Ulmer, he got after me because I had a bow that was so unbelievably dialed in. It was like an extension of me. You know, it was perfect. And the new bows came out, and I gave it to a friend. And Randy says, never give them away until you get the new one dialed in. And once you get it the way you like it, then give the old one away. You know, so I just had that one so fine tuned. It was, you know, and like I say, I don't tinker with it much, but I happened to land everything where it needed to be when I set it up, and it really shot well. But you know, that's not going to make much of a difference.
Question here. Yeah, got a question here. Are you a fan of FMJ, Full Metal Jacket, or carbon shafted arrows, and why?
I'll tell you what I'm into, and that's the problem where I'm at right now. I like having some aluminum in the shaft that I'm shooting, and the ACC was, you know, an awesome arrow. They don't make it anymore. They make the AC Pro competition, but they make the Pro Comp in a hunting arrow now, and so it's going to be a smaller size on the outside. You know, it's going to be like a 4mm, 5mm. And I like having that in case I nick something. I just full carbon. If you nick it, you just don't know what you're in for. And I like having that extra strength. You take an ACC and try and break it over your leg sometime, it hurts. You know, they were tough. Full Metal Jacket's great arrow. You know, and it is aluminum and carbon.
Got a question here. What was Casey's most memorable and impactful hunts from the Super Slam?
Oh, you know, I get asked this question a lot. One of the animals was a black-tailed deer that I shot. I had 2 years of photos of this deer. I had 2 daylight photos in 2 years of that deer. Most people that are listening to the podcast won't even understand what a big blacktail really is. This buck grossed 159 inches. He was not a bench leg. He wasn't a cross between a mule deer and a blacktail. And a 159-inch buck is enormous. It's a really big buck. And when I found him, I figured I was going to spend like 90 days trying to kill him. I was going to dedicate my whole fall to killing that deer. And I think I killed him about the 15th day into the season. I was on the ground, and I shot the buck at 10 yards. And I no sooner shot him, and my phone rang, started vibrating. I picked it up. It was Randy Ulmer. And Randy said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Randy, I just shot the buck." And he says, "Well, I'm not going to take it away from you." He says, "Go enjoy it." And I walked up to him, and there he was laying there. And after 2 years, it was pretty satisfying.
Oh, for sure. So the Super Slam from start to finish, how long did it take you?
My first animal would have been in 1992. That would have been a caribou and a black bear from Alaska. And I really didn't have any dreams of shooting the Super Slam. And Darren Collins shot a Super Slam. He was number 7th guy to do it. And I had, you know, my bad back, and, you know, just I wasn't sure if I could get the sheep done and the goats and, you know, things like that. And I finally just put my mind to it. I says, I can do it. I just got to go at my own pace. And 92, and I finished up with a brown bear in 2012.
Got a question here. I know there are big bulls in an area I hunt in Idaho. How do I find them? Casey, I know you've hunted in Idaho. He's wanting to know how to find those big bulls. He knows they're there. How does he find them?
Great way to find them would be to give me the unit and the location. And I'll go find them. You know, Idaho, there's a lot of open country. So one thing I like about Idaho is, you know, it's open sagebrush and then little pockets of timber. And some of those places you can get Newton glass, and you can see those bulls in the first thing in the morning and a lot of times in the evening when they come out of the timber to feed. That's a great way to find a huge bull. You know, when you do find him, just slide in there and just talk to him. He should come walking right out of that pocket.
Either talk nice or talk dirty, right?
Whatever works.
Casey, I'm kind of paraphrasing a question here, but you're a farmer in Washington, and you guys farm up there a lot. And do you ever run into a situation where your farming is leading right up into elk season? And how do you handle kind of all summer long farming and then having to put a stop button on it to start your hunting? And or have you had some years where you had to farm, and get the stuff done before you took off for elk season?
That's pretty simple for me. And it is, you're talking about that. It's happening right now. My first elk hunt starts in Idaho. No, wait a minute. It starts in Nevada, I think, on the 25th. One or the other. I think it's 25th in Nevada. And I'm working here. I'm here right now on the farm. I'm not at home. I'm up here in Goldendale on my sister's and my dad's place. And in 3 days, my trailer is going to leave out of the driveway, and I'm not going to come back for 6 months. So that's just the way it is. When it's time to go, it's time to go. So I'll go home. I'll pull everything in home. I'll probably go salmon fishing for a couple days to unwind a little bit and see if I can argue with somebody in the boat next to me, because it's super crowded where I like to go. And it's nothing like what you do, Jay. You should come do it sometime. It's combat fishing. But anyway, I'll go down there and go fishing for a couple days. And then we'll start loading everything up and start hitting it. Once I start going, I won't stop. And now I did stop.
Got a question here. What's your...
You there? There you are.
Yeah.
I did stop a couple of years ago. In October, I planted a field. I came home and I planted a field. I actually had a sheep tag, and I planted a field. You got to have your grass in by October 15th where we're at. It's a good idea to have it in. And I had a sheep tag, and my wife was asking me, what in the heck are you doing here? You've got a sheep tag. Why are you here? I says, well, maybe it's because I'm getting older. I'm getting a little more responsible. I don't want to think that, but maybe that's the case.
Or maybe there was a big deer in the field or something. Maybe that had something to do with it.
Oh, yeah, you never know.
Got a question here. What's your favorite bugle tube of choice?
I can't answer that because it's from the 80s, and I don't know what the name of it was. But the Deep Timber Sounds elk call is the elk call that I use. It's a Deep Timber Sounds. It's a very difficult call for most to blow, and you got to cut your reeds yourself. But the sound that I get out of it, I really like. I'm not as talented as my son is with the diaphragm, not even close. And if I was, I'd probably do what he's doing, and I'd use the power call stuff that he uses, But the tube is just obsolete. It's like a piece of garden. It's like a garden. It's not a garden. It's like a swimming pool hose that they used to use in the old days, and they cut them off.
Skinny.
Skinny. Yeah. I like it because it's flexible and it just rolls around. The stuff that you see at the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation at these tournaments and stuff like that, the world calling competitions, those big, long things, wiffle bats. I don't carry any of that kind of stuff. I don't need it, for what I'm doing. It's just awkward. And when a bull's coming in, this thing molds around my body, and I can just throw it up, make a sound, and then it just goes right back there, and it's not in the way for me to shoot.
Wouldn't you say, too, I've tried to blow that call. You've cut different mouthpieces, and it's very difficult. I can usually blow most calls, and it's very difficult. But wouldn't you say having the background in waterfowl calling that you have also allows you to be really good at blowing that call? Because, there's something about it. It seems like, Bo blows it good, you blow it good. Waterfowlers seem to blow that call really well.
It's hard to say. At one time I had a little call company, and that was when Bo was born. We actually had to leave the Sportsman show from selling calls to go to the hospital when Bo was born in 97. I just know how to play with calls to get the sound that I'm looking for. Whether I can perfect it or not, that's a different story. Like I say, diaphragm. If I could blow a diaphragm half as good as Bo can, I'd be extremely happy.
Got a question here. Better to use calls early season pre-rut or go in silently, glass, locate the elk first and then stock?
74 bull with bow and arrow. I have shot one out of a tree stand that I didn't call in. I think the rest of them are all call-ins. I don't think I've ever spot and stalked an elk and just slipped in and popped him. Oh no, there is one. He was raking a tree. I slid in on a bull that was raking a tree one time. But other than that, almost all I call them in. Yeah, I let them come to me.
And I'd like to point out too, duck and geese, duck and goose calling and calling blacktails. And calling turkeys. People don't know, but I mean, you take 60 days off for turkey season. The same for waterfowl. Like, you go all the time and you're constantly calling. Wouldn't you say? I mean, other than sheep, like, your draw to hunting is your interaction with the animal by noise, by calling.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's all about for me. I feel like I'm more in control of the situation if I bring whatever it is I'm calling to me. I just feel like it's just a much better opportunity. I showed you that. Go ahead.
But isn't it more, too, than having control? It's enjoying having either that turkey come in full strut gobbling or having those, ducks coming in, cupping their wings, or those geese coming in. It's about interacting with them, turning them and having them come, and that they're coming in. It's the thrill of that, right? You're in your mid-50s. I mean, are you every bit as fired up about that now as you were the first day, or is there any part of that that's waning?
Oh, no, I'll take it to my grave, I'm sure. Yeah, I get excited when any of them come in. I shot a bull, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. I don't know. I hurt my back pretty bad working during the summer, and I was going through some pretty good physical therapy to try and just get healed up. And I couldn't walk very far, and pretty much was going to shoot in Oregon. I was going to shoot whatever bull came walking in, and I started calling, and this 5-point bull starts answering early in the season, and he hung up on me. It's a 5-point bull, Jay. This thing would score about 210. And he hung up out there, and it took about a half hour to get him that last 80 yards, and I shot him. Giant body bull, just didn't have much of a rack. And I was actually shaking like I'd shot a 450 bull. So...
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the sport. That's what we love. I mean, I know you're like me on turkeys. You're every bit as fired up about killing. And, you may kill 10 turkeys a year, but you're as fired up about that bird coming in as maybe some big giant bull elk that you've killed. And maybe the duck comes in, you're hunting with your son or hunting with your dad or something. You're just excited to be out there in the duck blind calling and doing that stuff. Got a question here. Are there any tribal archery elk hunts that you are doing this fall?
No.
No.
Nope. I've got the Idaho Super Raffle elk tag. I got lucky and drew that. And I have a Nevada tag, and I have the Winnahaw tag. And like I say, I believe I'm going to probably elect to turn the Winnahaw back in because it's really burning up bad. It's going to be a rough year for the bow hunters in Oregon this year, probably in Washington as well.
Got a question here. Where is your farm?
My farm is on the west side of Washington in La Center, and then my father's farm, my sister's farm, where I'm sitting right now, is in Goldendale, Washington.
Got a question here. How do you find that video on YouTube, the San Carlos Bowl? I think I saw last night that Bo was going to start you a YouTube channel, and you're going to maybe post some of these videos up. But guys, also go on Casey's Instagram page and make sure to follow because he's posting videos there. But I think you're starting a YouTube channel as well, right? To post because you got unbelievable videos of all kinds of animals. I've seen them. It's unbelievable. On your phone, you're like, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this.
Well, and the problem is, some of the stuff, it's really big stuff, but it looks like Michael J. Fox was my photographer. So it's not going to, it's not going to look too good. I'll apologize in advance for the shakiness. I'm not the but my cameraman a lot of times is my guide that was required to be with me. And he's just as nervous about the bull coming in as I am, and he's just not wanting to scare it off. But that big bull that he's talking about is on if you look up Casey Brooks Archery on YouTube, that video will pop up, or Casey Brooks elk. I would say it would pop up. So just look under Casey Brooks Elk under YouTube. And, there's going to be some comments on there. You probably see them, oh, it's a high fence bull. I can promise you there's nothing high fence about anything that I'm doing. It's a free range bull. Those three strand fences that you see in the video, those are for keeping cattle in. And those elk walk across those things every day, in and out. They go off the res, they go onto the public land, and then back again. I shot that bull not very far from public land. I'm sure that bull had spent time on public land at some point in time. He's wild. He's worth watching the video.
Got a question for you. Advice for first-time moose hunter going to Alaska in September. You've shot 8 or 10 moose, or maybe more. I don't know. That's a guess. So you have a leg to stand on when it comes to moose hunting. What recommendations do you have?
Well, first thing I would say is if you're going to Alaska, make sure that you get every single ounce of meat if you're going to work on your moose that you can get, because they're real sticklers on that. And the moose, it depends on when you're going. I think you're going to go during the rut. If you're going to go to Alaska, it's going to pretty much be in the rut. I just wait till he turns sideways and let him have it. They're just like shooting an elk. So if you shot an elk, not a big deal. Moose are really tall, but they're kind of like a panfish. They're kind of thin the other way. So they're no big deal. Penetration shouldn't be an issue. If you're having, if you got a good elk set up, you'll be just fine with what you've got for elk to shoot a moose with it.
Casey, question on I'm a follow-up question to his. He'll be there in September. When you go on your moose hunts, are you wearing waders a lot of the time, or what are you wearing? Because a lot of times you're hunting, it's very, very wet, or are you just wearing rain pants?
Moose hunting can be that way. It can be really, you got to go through a bog after bog after bog after bog. So hunting woodland caribou, you kind of want to wear waders. Brown bear, you wear waders. Sometimes for moose, you'll hunt waders. The best thing that I found, if you're in one of those real swampy areas, is Simms makes fly fishing waders. We wore them this year on our brown bear hunt. They're fantastic. They're real tight to you, lightweight. And then you get the boots that go over. You want to get the boots that go over. You don't want the boots to be in your waders. You want them to, pull them on and then stuck them up.
Just like if you were going fly fishing, you have the boots on the outside. Get the Simms boots, or get a boot that fits outside of the wader, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the best way to stay dry. Well, the last thing you want is a 65-inch moose grunting at you, and all you have to do is cross a little beaver trail to get over there, but you got to go swimming to do it. If you could just walk across there with your waders on, that's a really nice thing. And those things don't weigh enough to worry about weight-wise. You can throw them in your bag if you use them, great. There's another product out of Alaska. It's like a pair of hip boots that go
Wiggy
over
waders.
your boot.
I think they're called Wiggy waders.
Yeah, they go over your boot.
They go over the top. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those would be okay too. They're a little heavier. Little different deal, but they work great. I shot a bull. I shot one of my first moose. I think was in Wyoming. I had a public land tag I drew, and I walked 5 miles back in there where this moose was, and I crossed the creek like 5 times to get to where this moose was, and I was having to take my shoes off, put them back on, and then I'd walk 60 yards and the dang creek would have switched back, or the river, and I had to cross it again, and if I had those things, all I had to do was just pull them on and just keep on walking. It would have really sped things up tremendously.
You've already talked about some of the elk tags that you have this year. Is there anything this year or in the future years, any hunts in particular that you're really looking forward to other than elk? Is there anything that, maybe a box is left unchecked that you want to go and pursue more, or anything got you fired up right now?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's got me fired up. Probably more than anything, the best hunt that I think that one of the very best hunts I've had, one of the best times I had, I shot a 5-point bull that scored about 300 inches a couple of years ago in Nevada. And my wife was with me on the hunt, and we just had a blast. So I'm looking forward to, she didn't realize it. She's probably listening now, but honey, you're going on that hunt. We just had a great time. She'd stand there next to me with her cell phone, and she'd video these bulls walking into 5 yards or 10 yards screaming. And I mean, it was just a great time. And of course, the payback is if she comes with me and spends the time with me, then I'm going to come help her. So, of course, I'll look forward to. I'm usually at her side. Last year, she shot a bull. It was her biggest bull ever. It was 315, I think, and of course it.
She and your sister have shot bulls and hunt archery together. The two of them, they hunt solo. You come from a family that of all of you guys hunt.
Well, I'm in her house. I'm in Tana's house right now, and if you look kind of over my shoulder, there's a 204 mule deer. She says 206. Gets bigger. And there's another mule deer over there. It's a pretty nice one. There's a couple elk up here. So, yeah, she loves to get after it. I remember years ago when Dad and I were at White Mountain hunting elk, the people were so kind at White Mountain, they drove 70 miles clear up to Maverick Camp, and they put a piece of paper down for us. It was for Mr. Brooks. It was for Dad and I. And it was a photocopied picture of a bull that my sister and my wife had killed on their own. It was a 6-point bull. And I'm not sure who was pregnant. My sister was massively pregnant, and I think my wife was probably pregnant at the same time. I can't remember, but they were both out there doing the best they could. I think Tana might have been 8 months pregnant or something. Here she is bow hunting and killing bulls.
That's awesome. It's great to see everybody in the family just having a passion for hunting. As we get here kind of to the end, I want to ask you a couple questions. So for someone that literally has been all over the world with your bow and arrow and hunted and harvested animals on pretty much every continent, talk a little bit about your love for being a sportsman, whether it be hunting, whether it be fishing. Talk about that as far as is it just something in your heart that like you said, till you go to the grave you're going to be doing it? Do you love it as much now as you always have? And just talk about how when it's in your blood, it's in your blood.
It is. It's way in there. When you start going out with your dad when you're 5 years old, it kind of sticks with you. Or you get ran off. I've got one son that, I took him out there when he was 5 years old, and he's into computers and other things.
Sure.
He doesn't mind hunting. He just doesn't like getting up, and he doesn't like freezing his behind off. That's all. So It's not for everybody. For those that take to it, man, it's just, there's something about getting out and breathing the air. I'm not there to go on a trail ride. I'm not going out there to, some people say, I don't care if I kill anything. I'm just here for a good time. And I'm not, that's not me. I'm there.
You like to shoot often.
I'm there to shoot. Yeah. I'm there to hunt and find something big on it. And that's the challenge for me. If I don't get it, I'll go to the very end on some of the best tags in the world on deer and elk I've had, and I'll go to the last second, and I may not kill one, but that I gave it a try, and I've walked away from many, many 200-inch deer that I didn't get killed that, taught me a horrible lesson all along the way, or a bunch of lessons. And all I do is smile and say, I'll try you again next year if I can get the tag. So,
yeah. For sure. The fun thing about it is, you go hard whether you're fishing, you go hard whether you're hunting. But I also love that anytime, we've hunted together a bunch, we've been around each other a bunch, you're always having a good time. I've been enjoying following you on Instagram, you joking around with your eating your fudge bars and, testing that's your coronavirus test and some of the different things. Yeah, and I like, you on your Instagram it says you enjoy short walks on the beach and Dairy Queen.
I do. I'm not that guy that's the poster child for fitness. I'm just not. I'm 205 pounds, 6'1", and I'm truthfully not in great shape. But I get it done. I go at my own pace. You don't have to be a weightlifter. You don't have to be in extremely good condition to go kill stuff. All you got to be is persistent and just, not kill yourself doing it.
I want to finish on one last question because I got several questions earlier on Instagram, and it talks about kind of those final moments as a bow hunter. There's probably no one I could talk to that's harvested more animals than yourself as a bow hunter. Those last few seconds when you're in the moment, whether it be a moose or an elk or whatever it may be, How do you get your mind right to execute time in and, over and over and over? What's the secret?
I'll tell you one thing and this really is going to sound weird, but it depends on the hunt. If it's really cold and a big buck's coming in and it's really cold, my body, I start getting excited and I start shaking. And one of the things that I found, and it just seems ridiculous, and I don't know why that this works for me, but I take a big breath and then I just start pushing on, I take a big breath and I start pushing against myself with that big breath. And when I come out of that, a lot of times my nerves have calmed down. And it works for me, and I can't even tell you why. Makes no sense whatsoever, but I know that there's times where, you're cold and you get excited, and the more you shake and the more you try not to shake, the worse it gets. But getting in the right frame of mind, I think that experience is what does that. Enough times being in that position, I think you get better. I think you get better with time, and it depends on the situation. Sometimes you fall apart even though you've been there 100 times. I do see one Cody Newman did. Can you see that one that says Cody Newman? He asked how many trucks I've stole in my hunting career. I think he stole one truck in my hunting career, and it was his buddies. He left it running in a McDonald's parking lot. And so I jumped in it and started driving off. I drove by the window, and they came running out. What I didn't realize is Chris was packing. I didn't realize that he had a gun, or I wouldn't have. But it was pretty funny.
Well, that is funny. Casey, I've enjoyed this hour with you, and I wanted to thank you, not only you, but your family. Anybody that knows the Brooks family knows how gracious you guys are, and you're been great friends for a long time, and it's one of those things that I'll cherish for a long time, being able to know all of you guys and how nice you are to people. So I just want to thank you for your friendship.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate, what is that, 6,000 listeners right now? I really appreciate it's 40 listeners, but I appreciate all you guys listening. I'm just a bow hunter like everybody else. I hunt some pretty good hunts, and I hunt some hunts that are not as good as others. Still do a lot of public land hunting. I still do some guided hunts. I prefer not to do the guided hunts if I don't have to. I'm really kind of not an easy guy to guide. I'm kind of hard-headed, and I know that, but I'm just a regular guy like everybody else. I just love to go hunting and love to shoot stuff. So I just wish everybody the best. I hope you all have a great season this year.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know people will really get a kick out of this, and I encourage everyone to make sure to follow Casey on Instagram. You're a heck of a guy. You've been a great friend for a long, long time. I look forward to the future years here. And again, tell everyone there in the Brooks household hello, and we'll see you down the road, okay?
Sounds good. I'm going to go back to work. You guys all have a great day.
Go get a fudge sickle.
I'm going to do that first. See you, buddy.
Okay. God bless. Take care.
Guys, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. If you want to send me a direct message, you can do so on my Instagram account, which is @jscottoutdoors. You can also send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. I appreciate all the feedback on the podcast, and I look forward to hearing from you. GoHunt.com Insider has Filtering 2.0, where you can get draw odds, strategy articles, species and unit breakdowns, and unbelievable gear giveaways. Did you know that they actually have a point system where you get 11% back to the consumer for using points for every dollar spent? Also, a new addition is the mapping, Go Hunt Maps. You have the desktop version, you have the mobile version for iOS and for Android users. There's never been a greater value for the Go Hunt Insider. Check them out at gohunt.com/JScott.